I'm Mina Karamasuti, and I cordially welcome you to our lunch talk. The talk will last about half hour, and afterwards, for about 20 minutes, we will have time for discussion. You can pose always your question during the whole duration in the chat. Please be aware that the session will be recorded, and in due time you will be able to find this recording in the Edible Cities Network channel in YouTube. So let's start. Today you are attending the first lunch talk of the Future-Proof Agroecological Landscapes Lunch Talk series. The lunch talk is part of the communication actions of the ecofABULAnds project. ecofABULaNds aims to identify and assess agroecological practices throughout the whole agri-food chain at a landscape level. ecofABULaNds is a co-funded project, and it belongs to a series of 19 co-funded projects under the Agroecology partnership. This means that the project is financed by both the European Union and the contributing countries and funding institutes. The ecofABULaNds project, the HEBD project, and the EDICIT-NET projects share a common paradigm: co-creating healthy, biodiverse, and socially inclusive agri-food systems through participatory, place-based approaches. All projects are grounded in co-creation, stakeholder engagement, and living lab-like settings involving citizens, farmers, municipalities, researchers, NGOs, and SMEs. All projects aim to translate research into policy-relevant evidence, governance models, and implementable solutions. The ecofABULaNds Living Labs are real-life settings in Ireland, Germany, Hungary, Italy, and Cyprus, each telling a unique story of local innovation and adaptation with the ambition to communicate practical solutions for agroecological transformation. These practical solutions per each living lab rely to more than one of the 13 principles of agroecology, which incorporate all the ecological, sociocultural, technological, economic, and political dimensions of agri-food systems, from production to consumption. Today, in a festive mood, we will travel to these living labs and we will learn about agroecological practices, local food traditions, and seasonal cycles in sustainable agri-food systems. We will be navigated in the trip around Europe by Dr. Alessandro Brica from Free University of Bozen Bolzano in Italy, Professor Eleni Magina from University College Dublin in Ireland, Professor Marino Stylianou from Open University of Cyprus, and Dr. Ina Zoimel from Humboldt-Universität Berlin in Germany. And we immediately start. Alessandro, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mina. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for introducing me and also for inviting me to this edition of Christmas Lunch. And yeah, I am Alessandro Brick, and together with the Professor Montagnani, we basically represent the Italian partner of this project. And next slides. Thank you. So the topic that we deal are based on integration of the medicinal plants into agroecological practice, and also keeping in mind natural conservation frameworks. I would like to start with telling a story with the roots in ancient Greek and with the philosophy of Hippocrates, who said, "Let the food be your medicine and the medicine your food." So basically, since ancient time have been highlighted this relation between food and the curative capacities. And this kind of concept is now increasing and can help also to explain why in the last decades we are observing an increasing interest not only within academia but also outside academia on medicinal plants, on collecting these plants in natural environment, an activity called wild foraging. This is because, first of all, there are an increasing awareness about nutrition, health, and well-being. Indeed, these kind of plants are grouped into functional food category, which basically are food that provide nutrition benefits behind the basic nutrition value. Indeed, these plants, compared to the long domesticated plants, they are richer of flavonoids, carotenoids, and all other phytonutrients that act as a powerful antioxidants. But even if at the beginning we can say that this interest start to awareness of well-being, now this practice is also adopted by restaurants, for example, that combine medicinal plants into their dish to offer traditional cuisine, local cuisine. And also these plants are sold in the market, local market. So basically we have that this activity can also support the local and the regional economy. The point is that next slide, Mina. Okay, the point is that this increasing trend in collecting medicinal plants in natural environments is also coupled with some problems. First of all, we may have a problem of over harvesting. In other words, not all species are equally abundant in nature. Some medicinal plants are more abundant than others, and others are rare. So basically, over harvesting can produce a local extinction of some medicinal plants. That's why it's highly restricted their collection. But the main process, the main driver that can represent a threat for this species comes from global change, and especially agricultural intensification with the large use of pesticide, insecticide, and so on. The consequence is that this kind of land use basically produce an homogenization of the landscape with the destruction of the natural habitat in which these plants lives. Also to the fact that the use of pesticide can poison the environment and in turn also the human well-being. So basically it's essential find a way in which we can integrate the medicinal plants that are cultural component of the landscape into more broader nature conservation frameworks. It's essential, therefore, understand which land use or management practice represent a threat for these plants and which ones, on the contrary, can foster their long-term persistence. So basically, we have to find a more sustainable way to manage the landscape in which the conservation of nature is balanced with economical support for local people. Next slide, Mina. Thank you. So here we are. The main activity of our learning lab of our Italian partner are basically related to a screening of all medicinal plants that have been used in the past or are still used today in South Tyrol, and also identify which of these plants are more used than other in order to understand also how they can contribute to local economy. Then another important thing is identify the best practice that the farm can use to meet these two different aim, preservation of medicinal plants in natural environment, but also have economic support from landscape management. Important task is after identification of the, let's say, more suitable practice, also a divulgation across different stakeholders that are present in the South Tyrol. Okay, and next one. Thank you. So now I would like to close my presentation with another story, and this is in order to highlight better this concept in which tradition meet landscape ecology or management. I would like to tell a story about this species. This species is Achillea millefolium. It's a species present in Italy, in Europe, and also in Asia. And it's present in South Tyrol from valley to the mid-elevation. It occurs in a specific habitat, open habitat like grassland, and at least also in the forest edge. So first of all, this means that these species strictly depend on land use management, even if in this case we are speaking about low intense management, not agricultural intensification. The abandonment of land that trigger process of expansion of shrub and forest. Basically, we have the loss of grassland and the loss of suitable habitat for this species. This species is one of the most used in South Tyrol folklore, and traditionally is collected during the summer season, and especially the leaves and the flower. And since we have increasing demand of this species, of the product of this species, now there are also attempts to cultivate in order to decrease the pressure on natural population. Next slide, Mina. Thank you. Indeed, this species has different use, but the main are related to the herbal tea. It's used as herbal tea to facilitate the digestive process, especially after a heavy lunch, and especially during winter times or Christmas. Indeed, now we have also the connection with this festivity. This species is one of the species that belong to the group of strong herb. These species are, as I say, harvested in summer, dried, but then used in winter times. Indeed, this species, according to the folklore, is related to some ritual that are performed to clean the person, to clean this from a spiritual point of view, but also the house from evil spirits. Indeed, the concept of evil spirits is connected with the dark and therefore with the winter season. There are this kind of specific rituals called the smoky nights between Christmas and Epiphany, in which this species is burned, and then the smoke is used to clean the environment of the house. And yeah, I would like to tell this story about this species to connect this different point about the importance of traditional folklore, but also the land use, the importance of specific habitat in which the species is present, and also the economic aspect, since this species is present in the market. So I guess that it's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. It was a great story, and let's move now quickly to Eleni
Thank you.
and Ireland.
Thank you. Thanks a million. Today, I will briefly present to you the Irish perspective in terms of the agroecology in season, and we'll be focusing in this short presentation on how the local knowledge, the different landscape level practices occur within the country, and also a little bit during the festive season on the cultural traditions and how these contribute to resilient agroecological transitions. This contribution here is fully aligned, and because we're working on the ecoFABULAnds project, and it explores the agroecological practices at the landscape and value chain level. And with the agroecology partnership vision that we are part of, we will try to enable sustainable place-sensitive farming systems across Europe. So let's move on to the next slide, where I would like to talk to you through about the Irish agroecological landscapes. They're a bit different. They're shaped by grass-based mixed farming. As you can see from the pictures, they have strong seasonality, and there is very close interactions and relationships between land, biodiversity, and food production. From the agroecology partnership perspective within this project, this directly reflects within the theme on redesigning agroecosystems at farm and landscape level, where ecological processes and productivity are addressed together. So within the Irish agroecological landscapes, we have grass-based mixed farming systems, we have landscape biodiversity food linkages, we have a quite strong climate-driven seasonality, and a strong community stewardship of the land. These landscapes, they are actually providing an ideal setting for this landscape scale agroecology, which will be emphasized throughout the project within the next years. In terms of, within the next slide, in the local knowledge and community practices, one of the key strengths within the Irish agroecology system, we have locally embedded knowledge systems which are often transferred across generations, and they are adapted through different practices. So this aligns closely again with the ecoFABULAnds focus on farmer-led innovation. And you can see here and I have the link of actually a little piece of Ireland in everything we produce, and that's from the IFA in Ireland. And you can see that this is particularly relevant with the theme 3 in the agroecology partnerships, where we have living labs and real life environments, and we have spaces for co-creation with the farmers, co-creation within the living labs. So the knowledge here, it's not just about technical knowledge, we have social, cultural, and contextual knowledge, which is essential actually for successful transition. So you can see also in the slide here on the left-hand side, organic land area has tripled, and there is more to the story. Farmers are a strong part of the solution, and that's a strong message all around Ireland. Within the next slide, I would like to talk to you a little bit about our Irish Christmas traditions and how seasonality and agroecology are actually culturally embedded here. We have specific practices like the Christmas candle, and we use locally sourced evergreen plants. We have communal celebrations like the Rainbow Procession, and they all reinforce actually the values of sharing, caring, and respect for nature all around the country. Just a little bit about the history of what's happening with the Rainbow Procession. That has been revived in recent years, and we have parades around the country in different locations. And it all comes from the tale of the rainbow. A tale tells of a pilot in a village against some British soldiers during penal times, and the soldiers were surrounded and were about to be ambushed when a group of wrens pecked on their drums, raising the alarm. And the plot failed, so the wren became known as the Devil's Bird. To commemorate now this deed as a procession, it takes place where a pole with a holly bush is carried from house to house, and you can see it and on the left-hand side corner in the slide. So it's been carried from house to house, and families are dressed up in old clothes and with blackened faces. In ancient times, an actual wren bird would be killed and placed on top of the pole. Another tradition is the candle in the window, which is a tradition that was actually spread more in the 70s, but it seems to be dying out, although you can see it in many windows in the Irish houses. Symbolically, it represents a welcome to Joseph and Mary as they wandered in search of lodgings. Then, of course, we have the Christmas cake. And if you don't know, we have also Little Christmas, that's January the 6th. And all the Christmas decorations are taken down and put away on that day. And we have, of course, some modern Ireland traditions all around Christmas that are all around the world, and we are following in the country. Now, back to, in the next slide, back to our ecofabulans and the Living Labs perspective. We're trying to identify, assess, and capitalize the agroecological practices within the country that are adapted for specific landscapes. And you can see one of our Living Labs in Ireland, it's quite active. And the Irish case within this project demonstrates how seasonal and cultural practices can act as the main entry points for Living Lab activities, which support the different observations, the reflections, and knowledge exchange with not just the technicalities, but also the knowledge exchange within the social setting and the agroecology. So that contributes to networking of Living Labs and transferring locally adapted innovations across all regions in the country. In the next slide, the Irish experience highlights how we want to future-proof the agroecological transitions, especially because they require attention in this interdisciplinary concept, both on cultural, social, and seasonal dimensions, and not just on the technical change. And we're focusing on these enablers of this transition to include social acceptance, policy coherence, and decision support at all levels. Of course, we have the digital tools, and we will include different data spaces, data platforms, and artificial intelligence. These can be only a toolkit to help document and preserve and connect the local knowledge, and we want to ensure that this tradition and innovation is jointly supported with sustainable territorial transitions within the country, but also within this project across Europe. Building a circular Ireland is one of the main focuses within our group as well, in terms of the roadmap that can focus on strategies, not just prevention, but also reuse, better design, efficient usage of resources, and of course the value, the added value that the innovative business models can actually be reused. So this roadmap, I will not spend too much time here on it, but it focuses on six main points, and they're addressed within the roadmap in the link that I have included in the slide. So we want to value our existing building stock, plan for resource efficiency, design the circularity, close the materials loop, change the business model, and enable this circular transition. So each of these six main sections will provide a range of specific short-term and long-term recommendations that are aiming to transform the built environment and support Ireland's shift towards a circular economy, and of course decarbonization. We want to enhance the implementation, we want to enhance these recommendations, and as a research team in UCD, we are also interested in this interaction and also the experience policy and what other new policies might be needed. And I will finish off this presentation by wishing you I hope I pronounced it right. I've been living in Ireland for 25 years, and I hope I still pronounce it right. Nolexonadut, it's Merry Christmas to you or Good Christmas to you, and that's in Irish. So thank you for the invitation and looking forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Eleni, and this nice trip to Ireland. And let's move to another place in Europe, in Cyprus. And Marino, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mina. Thank you. Good day to all. Marino Stylianou. I'm a chemical engineer at the Open University of Cyprus. Can you skip 1 or 2 slides, Mina? Next slide. So our partnership in the project, in the ecoFABULAnds project, is related to organic waste and circular practices that are dealing in a specific living lab that are building in the Larnaca Pharmaceusta area, trying to see the possibilities of organizing and managing organic waste produced in this area, and building lighthouses and in relation to the living lab, educating farmers how to use waste, how to transform waste into new materials like compost, biochar, or using other amendments in order to increase soil health, improve soil health, increase organic matter in soil, etc. Next slide, Mina. Next one. So Cyprus, as you know, is an island in the Mediterranean area. We had visitors in Cyprus more than 10,000 years ago. And the first visitors came to Cyprus to find specific rich material like ores, colors, amber, copper, etc. And from the first time that they realized that they can have harvest in an area, they built communities. And in these communities, as you see here, the 7,000 BC Hieroketia settlement, they had no waste. They used everything that they could produce and use in their daily life. So we have, next slide, please. We have fingerprints of what they were producing, like cereals, wheat, barley, legumes, in relation to the climatic conditions at that time. But we also find testimonies that they were using fire in order to cook food and to use charcoal. So we have the first, let's say, idea of circular economy as we realize it now, for to use things in a circle and not to have impact on the environment. Next slide, please. So in more recent time, Cyprus, as you know, has water scarcity and strong seasonality as an area. So people are trying to find solutions in order to improve their daily life and to produce products that are in high, let's say, equality. So the life of Cyprus is fully organized with the production of cereals and livestock, mainly cows, sheep, and goats. Next slide, please. In these areas, as you can understand, we have difficult challenges to oversee, like small land parcels, different landscape, low drought periods, and people are always trying to find ways to face these issues. Regarding to livestock, they produce, let's say, meat and milk, dairy products, but also the waste that is produced there, it's getting back to the landscape in order to improve soil health. Next slide. One of the agroecology practices that is under use in a lot of areas in Cyprus are terraces. Terraces are improving soil health in various ways. Reducing soil temperature fluctuations can create slightly warmer or cooler spots suitable for different crops like vinegars and other varieties. Next slide. So regarding the Christmas time, you can see from the timetable here that from November 15th until the December 25th, we have the fasting period before Christmas. We are in parallel with the agricultural way, agricultural life. Farmers are harvesting their fields, also collecting the olives from trees. So from this period, we have a lot of production of waste. Next slide, please. In this period of fasting, this 40 days fasting, we are not eating any meat or dairy products, but we are using all the products that were produced in agriculture before in order to have this period before Christmas. As you can see, main products are olives, wine, products of olives and wines, and a lot of cereals. Next slide. Of course, after Christmas or from Christmas Day, we are eating a lot of meat, and we are producing a lot of products from meat, like sausages, products from pork, like lunza, meat from with wine. As you can understand, because of these difficult climatic conditions, citizens try to preserve products, meat products, under different ways, either from putting a lot of ingredients inside, like fat, vinegar, wine, etc. We are also in the period of collecting vinegars. So we have a lot of vinegar wine leaves that we are collecting and using it for producing food products like the known kopepia or dromadakia in Greece. Producing also a lot of wines. The picture that you can see in the bottom is the Commandaria sweet wine. It's the, let's say, the first branded wine in the world. Yes, next slide. Next category is using wheat that is produced. In the Christmas period, we are producing a lot of, let's say, different kind of breads from these materials, and also from Christmas until the Epiphany Day, there are a lot of traditions, like the one you see in the bottom, that farmers are putting some wheat seeds in a plate, and they water it and leave it until the Epiphany Day, until they sprout, and then they spread it out in the field. And they use also holy water from the Epiphany Day, from the Theophany Day, in order to have, let's say, a good year of production from their fields. Next slide. Olives is a main product in Cyprus, in the Mediterranean area. So we are collecting olives from September until December, producing products like olive oil, green olives, or the non-tsakistes olives. You will taste this when we will come in Cyprus. Black olives, olives with vinegar, with salt, etc. But we have also a lot of waste, organic waste, green waste, like the leaves, branches that we use in this Christmas period for, let's say, for burning, for cooking. Or we also have some specific traditions, like in the Christmas or the Year's Eve time, to use some olive leaves in the fire. And if the leaf, when it reaches the charcoal, makes a noise or jumps, explodes, then it means that someone loves you. And the good thing is that you have a lot of trials to take all the night to find someone that you really loves you. Okay, next slide. Sweets, a lot of sweets in the Christmas period, the known Christmas cakes, of course, and the Vasilopita from Saint Vasilis in the New Year's Eve, that It's the first cake in the year, where inside the cake we have a coin, and whoever in the family finds it, it's the lucky one for the next year. You can see a lot of pictures from fruits, dried fruits or fruits that are preserved in sugar. As I said before, it's similar like the meat. We are trying to preserve food different ways. So we have a lot of sweets kept in our storerooms. Even in the picture below that, you can see some almonds in a paste of wine syrup, let's say. Next slide. And lastly, an important and very sweet tradition for us in the period from Christmas until the Epiphany Day, those 12 days, there is this tradition of bad spirits that are all around the area, Skalapundari, as Antonis said, or Kalikanzari. Those bad spirits mainly drug men during the Christmas period that were trying to be a little naughty in the villages. So the people are preparing these donuts, lokumades, that they throw on the roofs of their houses with sausages, and sing some songs for the bad spirits to leave, to go back to hell or to the deep underworld, and to leave us alone. So it's all traditions are connected with nothing to leave as waste, not to throw something in the waste, let's say, to use everything in order to have high productivity of things and good quality of things. Next slide. So from all the team, have a nice Christmas and happy New Year, the future. Next slide. Stay connected with our ecofabulans in our living lab in Cyprus. We have a LinkedIn account and a Facebook account, and stay in touch for our future work and results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marinos, and this amazing trip to Cyprus. And we move immediately to Berlin, and last but not least, Ina Zoimel. Ina, the floor is yours.
I will take over and bring you to Germany, back from hot Cyprus to Germany. And I would like to ask you to imagine that it is December in Germany, sometimes in the early 16th centuries, and the nights are long, the fields are resting under the frost, and life has pulled inward. Yet inside many homes, a strange and beautiful custom is spreading. People bring a small fire tree indoors, decorating them with apples, nuts, gingerbread, roses made out of colored paper, and it looks almost magical, a blooming tree in the heart of the winter. This early winter Christmas tree was more than a decoration. It was a kind of winter wisdom. It carries the memory of orchards, of forests, and the agricultural year into a deep midwinter season. And I would like to tell you a bit about these stories. Next slide, please. If we look on the forerunners of the so-called Christmas tree, then we could identify first the so-called paradise trees. You all know the story of the Bible. Adam and Eve picked the apple on the serpent's advice, etc. And we look into the old Bible, then it simply says a fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil was picked up. And in the early Christian art, the fruit is depicted as a fig. But later, after the Bible was translated into Latin, the apple suddenly appeared on the tree of paradise. And here in this figure, you can see the Lonitzer herbal book, one of the oldest herb books with a lot of knowledge on species and the use of these species, inclusive the medicinal use. Here you see that the apple tree is the first plant in the book. And it could be, it's interesting that if you look in Latin, malus with a short a means evil, and with a long a, as a malus, means apple tree. So the apple tree is really linked into the early Middle Ages. Another forerunner from the Christmas tree are the so-called Wintermaien. These have been green branches that have been, especially from fruit trees, actually, for example, cut it on the 4th of December on Barbara's Day. They were brought into homes as a symbol of hope, since they often did not bloom in time because they should bloom until Christmas. There, the people started to use evergreen plants, and they became preferred over time. Next slide. So the first, let's say, evergreen plant, decorated tree that is reported is from 1419 in Fribourg, in a hospital. It was installed in a hospital. And there were apples, nuts, and gingerbread on the tree, and the children could, to the children in Fribourg, it was allowed to plunder the tree on the New Year's Day. Well, in other parts, here, for example, in Riga as well, in 1510, there was the first outdoor Christmas Maien documented. Let's say this is the first public Christmas tree. Then, over the next centuries, the tree moved from the guild halls and from the marketplaces to the homes of the people. From the wealthier households, here you see the household from Martin Luther with his family celebrating Christmas, to every corner of German-speaking Europe. Next slide. And with this, we start a bit like the industrialization of the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree plantations became a part of the modern agri-food sector. And maybe we can jump on to the next slide, a bit like fast forward to today. Next slide. And this is a quite typical picture of the Christmas tree plantations today. You will see rolling hills planted with young fir trees, and this is, let's say, the center of the modern Christmas tree cultivation, a landscape, let's say, where tradition and culture agriculture meet. Germany currently grows around 90% of the trees it sells on more than 30,000 hectares. And it's quite a lot of labor, pruning the branches by hand, checking soil moisture, walking row after row for pests and diseases. And most of this work is still done without major heavy machinery. So sometimes the farmers use also sheep to graze between the trees, and the sheep are actually perfectly sized to eat the grass on the ground, but not to eat the needles, let's say. And so the sheep keep the understory tidy, fertilize the soil, and help reduce herbicide use, of course. So this modern sector, is due to the reason to have the seasonal plant. It's a decade-long commitment to a single festive moment. These typical trees that are sold out have something like between 7 and 10 years to grow. If we go more closer to this tradition, next slide, the most beloved species is the Norman fir. And here the story is surprisingly global. The beloved Norman fir is, has this perfect soft needles, mostly begins as a seed high in the Caucasus Mountains in Georgia, where collectors climb up 40 to 60 meters into old-grown trees and pick up the cones by hand. And it's a quite dangerous job, actually. There are many accidents as well in this. So a Christmas tree may be a local product produced nearby and maybe also in a type of ecological farming, but it's often, its roots often span continents. So here in the map, you see the Caucasus Valley, and the original Norman trees are from the western part of the Caucasus, and they grow between 800 and 2,000 meters above sea level. Actually, the Caucasian fir is named Nordman, and this Nordman comes from Alexander von Nordman, and he was a Finnish botanist who discovered the species in the Caucasus Mountains and in the 19th century, and he introduced the species to Europe, and it was named in honor of this man, as a typical scientific custom of naming new species after the person who discovered the tree or the species, let's say. Next slide. So, well, one question which is quite a lot in discussion currently is if this Christmas tree tradition is a sustainable way, and this we can, of course, also discuss later. But I was researching a bit what we know about Christmas tree plantations and the biodiversity there. And there are some interesting insights here from colleagues from botanists and zoologists. So Christmas tree plantations in Germany are, compared to other rural land use in Germany, are quite structurally rich habitats. So you find young saplings, mid-sized trees, mature stands, grasslands, flower margins. So these structures support a lot of species, and this is also shown in scientific studies. We have bees, bumblebees, butterflies, beetles, spiders, and many other invertebrates, often more than in other sites, agricultural sites. And we have also a lot of farmland bird species that are declining elsewhere in the landscape that have their habitat, like the partridge, hoopoe, woodlark, tree pipit, or the yellow hummingbird. We can later share these papers with you. Why this happens, it's quite clear. The colleagues identified the following points. It's normally an extensive management, fewer pesticides, less disturbance. It's open and accessible for the birds as a hunting space. We have high insect availability, mixed age structures, and the sheep that are often used for grazing, they produce quite a patchy and varied underground vegetation. So there, in terms of ecology, of course, Christmas farms could be even better, but they are quite interesting as an agroecological mosaic in rural landscapes. So when they are managed with biodiversity in mind. Next slide. And my last slides that I have are a bit linked to what Alessandro already mentioned. It's about the Rauhnächte, but I want to focus on another aspect. The question if there is seasonal knowledge and agroecological wisdom within the Rauhnächte. The Rauhnächte are between the 24th of December until the 6th of January, so between the birth of Jesus and the Epiphany. Sorry. And but the tradition is older than the Christian tradition in Germany. It's more also related to the old stories. Yeah, before Christianization came to Germany, it's a silent time. The landscape rests, and yeah, it's yeah, a link to many myths, and one is the one very charismatic is the Wildhand you see here on the left side. And it could be interpreted as well as yeah, a way to reading the elements. The farmers that were closed home listened carefully to the storms of these nights. Strong warm winds meets wild winter, or cold cutting winds meets deep frost ahead. And with this observations of nature linked the so-called 12 nights, which the belief says that each of the 12 nights corresponds to 1 month of the next calendar year. And it's interesting. There is there in these times there have been knowledge collected, observing nature, like a bit of phenology, of yeah, of collecting agroecological knowledge in times without any meteorological station. So there are a lot of yeah, of old stories about this, and the farmers created so their own system of knowledge, of course, hyper local and not generalized. Not they cannot be generalized to other places. Next slide. About the smoking, already Alessandro mentioned this. I would like to highlight not the, let's say, the species aspect, but the aromatic smokes help to disinfect barns and stables. So they used herbs that had antibacterial and insect repelling characteristics. So it was a way of traditional biosecurity and animal health management, which became ritualized into culture. Next slide. And of course, there are a lot of literature today. We know much more about the herbs that have been used. And something that I would like to highlight is that if we look on these nights, maybe it's they reflect a bit another type of agroecological spirit in terms of the social dimension of agroecology. During these nights, the families gathered, they told stories, they prepared food, they cared for the animals. Sorry, they exchanged news, and they planned the new year. So it teaches us that resilient food systems depend on shared knowledge, on collective labor, on seasonal rhythms, on respect for landscape, intergenerational transmission of wisdom. And so in this sense, the Rauhnächte maybe are not only nights of superstition, they are nights of reflection, observation, and planning. And so maybe with this idea, you will have nice times during Christmas and the New Year. And yeah, all the best from Berlin to all of you.
Thank you very much, Seina. I hope now you can hear me. There was obviously some issue with my microphone earlier. And apologies to the previous colleagues. A big thank you to all of the speakers for this nice trip around Europe. We have collected several questions, and thank you for that. Before we proceed with the questions, though, I would like to go very quickly, Stephanie could possibly help us to this summary session. And since we had a lot of food for thought for this Christmas season, maybe we could have some more food for thought with this Advent calendar we have already created. There are still some days remaining before we reach the Christmas period, so there are still some hidden boxes for you to open. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And please be part of the discussion of Edible Cities Network. In next slide, please, where we have opened a forum for today's lunch talk, and you can share your thoughts there. And also in the next slide, you can find the place of a YouTube channel where you will find the recordings of today's session, but also more information about our sister project, the Habidi project. Very quickly, because time is running, to have a look to some questions. Alessandro already replied to Martin and Gottfried about the quality of the foods produced with organic farming. And Gottfried asked about the medical plants. So Alessandro said that not all medical plants are all plants are medical, because we can have also some toxic plants. And we have some questions from Steve and Martin. I think these go mainly to Eleni. So Steve is asking, are you doing something, an application for Erasmus Plus project for February 2016? If we are interested to participate and to have coordinated partner for Europe African project. I don't know, Steve, if you're addressing that just to Eleni or to the whole consortium of ecofABULands. Maybe, yeah, I don't know if Eleni has, yeah, okay, thank you, Eleni. And Martin was asking Eleni directly, did you ever look into the land use local climate temperature and rainfall pattern? There is one question about that. And Michael has responded to Martin, to your question, if there is the total percentage of organic land, what is this one? So Michael is responding that it's around 5.5% in Ireland. Unfortunately, we are super running out of time, but if there are still more discussions open, we cordially invite you to participate in our forum in this Edible Cities Network page. Our next lunch talk will be, thank you, Stephanie, will be on 10th February, again, the same time from 1 to 2. And the talk will be on forest gardens. The invited speakers are Jennifer Schulz from University of Potsdam and Thomas Remiars from Forest Gardening in Practice from UK. Stay tuned with us, and looking forward to having you in our lunch talk. In the meantime, Merry Christmas and all the best for a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.